started here. Georgetown-Scott County Planning Commission, August 11, 2022. Under Commission business, we have the approval of the July invoices. So I need a motion to approve the July invoices. I got a motion by Mr. Stone, second by Mr. Shirley. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Approval of the July 14, 2022 minutes. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Got a motion by Mrs. Singer. Second by Mr. Mifflin. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Approval of the August 11th agenda. Joe, are there any changes?
No.
Okay. So I need approval of the August 11th agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Mifflin.
Second.
Second by Mr. Shirley. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Items for postponement or withdrawal. Doesn't look like we have any postponement or withdrawal, Joe. Is that correct? So we've got nothing for postponement or withdrawal. We do have consent eligible. And Mr. Mifflin, you may have to tell me which ones those are. Or actually, Joe, which ones are consent eligible? Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. And I actually can see that. So we'll go in order. Okay, under new business, FSP 2022-36, Rita Jones property, final subdivision plat to subdivide 33.2 acre tract into 3 parcels and a 10.52 acre remaining parcel located at 495 Davis Turkey Foot Road. Is anybody here against that or want to hear that? Still have some questions? Matt wasn't able to answer them for you? Okay, so we'll hear that tonight. Next one is the FSP 2022-37, the Borales property, number 1. Final subdivision plat to subdivide a 60.57 acre tract into 6 lots located at 641 Stone Road. Is anybody here against that? We'll want to hear that one. Second. Anybody want to hear FSP 2022, the Borales property, number 1? I guess we could probably do 2 and 3 as well and vote on those all together. I'll read the next 2, which is also the Borales property, FSP 2022-38, Borales property number 2, final subdivision plat to subdivide 10.392 acre tract into 2 lots located at 543 Stone Road. Anybody here want to hear that or favor against that? And then FSP 2022-39, the Borales property number 3, a final subdivision plat to subdivide 13.881 acres tract into 2 lots located at 256 Carrot Pike. Anybody here want to hear that? And those are the only 3 then that are consent eligible. So I need a motion for those 3 to go consent.
I move that the 3 Borales properties that had previously been stated be voted on for consent.
So I got a motion by Mr. Mifflin.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Singer, and we'll do a roll call. For the record, Dan Smith is not here and DeJuan Garrett is not here for the record. So I've got a motion by Mr. Mifflin, a second by Mrs. Singer. We'll go through new roll call. Mrs. Singer? Sorry. Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Mifflin?
Yes.
Mr. Best?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Okay, and chair votes yes, so motion carries for those 3. So if you're here for that application, come up and sign those with Charlie. And then go back, we're going to go to old business. So before we get started again, if you're going to speak, Charlie, would you swear everyone in?
Yes, sir.
Everyone signed in to speak. You can stand and raise your right hand, please. Do you swear a affirmative statement you're to make tonight to be the truth to the best of your information and belief?
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Charlie. Thank you, sir. All right, so jumping into old business, ZMA-2022-33, 105 Rogers Gap Road zoning map amendment to change the zone district from R1B to A1 located southeast of intersection Cincinnati Road US 25 and Rogers Gap Road KY 620 west of I-75.
Thank you, that kind of gets all my stuff out of the way. So this is a zoning map amendment meant to change from R1B to A1 for a property off of Rogers Gap. Currently it's zoned R1B, single family residential, and the request is to downzone it to A1 agricultural. It's a 12.4 acre parcel located off of Rogers Gap and at that intersection, as you mentioned. This is an aerial shot of the property. So northwest of the property is the Harbor Village neighborhood. South is the Deer Run subdivision, and then all around is agricultural stuff, and then obviously there's the interstate, Cincinnati Pike and Rogers Gap. This is the current zoning map as it stands. The property in question is marked with a black star. So this parcel was platted as part of the subdivision project for Deer Run subdivision at the end of the 90s, the early 2000s. It was included as an optional open space, so it was not a required open space. The lots in the subdivision meet the lot sizes that were deemed appropriate for that district at the time. And this was just kind of an added feature that the developer had. They built out this in phases and then left this as the open space, and since then the property owner decided that they were not going to have it dedicated as open space for that subdivision area and put it up for sale. It has since been purchased and is now looking for down zoning just to kind of pursue more agricultural pursuits. So when we review zoning map amendments, we refer to KRS 100.231, in which you have to find that it is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan for an absence in such that finding that one or more of the following shall apply and shall be recorded as such that the existing zoning classification is inappropriate and the proposed zoning classification is more appropriate, or that there are major changes of an economic, physical, or social nature in the area that was not anticipated at the time of the comp plan and has altered the character to such a way that the zone type is inappropriate for that area. So on our future land use map adopted in the 2017 comprehensive plan, the area was defined as rural residential, which allowed for a less dense residential use in unincorporated areas of the county and are areas of rural character that is not meant to drain resources, increase transportation demands, or further divide large and agricultural lands. The request is also consistent with the community forum chapter, which mentions that properties outside of USB should not have urban scale development or commercial development. And this kind of reversion back to its previous form as agricultural would kind of satisfy that and would establish the maximum density as one that is less than the urban standard at 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres of property. After just consideration of this, staff concludes that the uses align with those of the rural residential, and I'll get to that in just a second. And so therefore, they don't really need to consider part 2, where they need to be reviewing it under inappropriate zoning classification or any major changes. It satisfies the first part that it aligns with the comprehensive plan that's been adopted. This is the concept plan that was submitted as part of this development. So they are looking to offer some barns for farm uses, some paddock spaces, training facilities, and residences. So it would not be developed in a way that would get that higher density. We can only really have 2 dwelling units, the first of which by right and the second which with a conditional use permit. But after that, it would no longer have enough acreage to exceed those standards. And the uses on it are much more consistent with the agricultural character surrounding up and down Cincinnati Road, across the interstate, and then up, kind of traveling north into the county. And so I kind of address this here. This kind of discusses some more logistical sides of things, but generally speaking, staff believes that those uses that are shown as part of the concept plan are more consistent with that agricultural nature and are better suited for that. Just a couple of comments on the concept plan. So for access, there's no issues surrounding access to the site. We don't have any problems as it is right now. However, it is important to note that since Rogers Gap is a state numbered highway, it requires state approval from the KYTC prior to using that as a driveway. I was unable to find any records that indicated that an approval had already been granted. So we will at some point require some type of documentation saying that KYTC finds the driveway proposed here is an appropriate location. It is outside of our control. In addition, just a couple things on general zoning standards. We do have building setbacks for the agricultural districts. At this time, the concept plan shows no building setbacks, and we wouldn't really expect it at this point in the game. For the A1 zoning district, it's a 50-foot setbacks from all property lines except those which border the interstate or major routes, such as US 25 and I-75. In the staff report, I just mentioned US 25. I did a little bit more further research and determined that the 100-foot setback that I was recommending off of US 25 would also need to apply for off of I-75. And so I've made just kind of a slight amendment to the conditions of approval to just reflect this increase or more available information. And then, yeah. So these are my findings. I believe that, and staff believes that the zoning map amendment request meets the findings required by satisfying the future land use map and other chapters within the comprehensive plan, and therefore recommends that the Planning Commission recommends approval to the Scott County Fiscal Court for the official zone change process. And if approval is recommended, we suggest adding the 3 conditions of approval. The first of which that they are subject to all applicable regulations of the zoning ordinance and subdivision and development regs. The second of which is that they establish the setback line from US 25 and I-75 as 100 feet for residences, and all other setback lines as 50 feet from their respective property line, and that the applicant received KYTC entrance approval for all driveways on that project site. That's all I have.
Thank you, Elise. Any questions for Elise before we bring the applicant up? Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak? We may have some questions for you. I probably.
Okay, that's fine.
Does anybody have questions for the applicant?
So the layout that we have here, are any of these buildings already on the property?
No, sir.
Okay. The pond?
No,
All right. And have you talked with the Department of Transportation about the entrance?
not yet.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Anybody else like to speak on behalf or against this application? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Now, this one is a little different. We're going from R1 to back to ag, so it's kind of going backward, which we don't get too many of these, but it's a nice thing to have, for sure.
Well, let me ask the applicant, are you in agreement with the staff on these recommendations and conditions?
As far as I understand them, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that the ZMA 2022-33 be approved with the 3 conditions of the staff.
Got a motion by Mr. Mifflin,
Second.
second by Mr. Vest. Again, we'll do a roll call. Brad Green,
Yes.
Mr. Mifflin,
Yes.
Mr. Vest,
Yes.
Mr. Stone.
Yeah.
And you know what? I forgot to turn on your microphones. I think they're all off.
They're out. They're not functional
Oh,
today.
they're not at
So
all.
we're recording it elsewhere, so
Thank you.
it doesn't
Appreciate
matter.
it. Mr. Shirley,
Yes.
Mrs. Singer,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Please come up and sign the documents with Charlie. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
And next on the agenda is FSP 2022-36, Rita Jones property, final subdivision plat to subdivide a 33.2 acre tract into 3 parcels and a 10.52 acre remainder parcel located at 495 Davis Turkey Foot Road.
Thank
You're
you.
busy today.
I'm all of these. Matt got out and Joe didn't have any, so I'm doing all of these. I got the short straw. So this is a subdivision plat to subdivide the parent tract into 4 total tracts, 3 parcels in the remainder. So the total acreage is 33.2 acres. I will kind of show the parcels, sizes, and their layout in subsequent slide, but their sizes range from about 7 3/4 3/4 to just over 10.5 acres. The axis is kind of, it's at a weird spot where a lot of roads are doing a lot of interactions, and I'll show it up on the board in a second, but accesses and driveways are proposed off of Davis Turkeyfoot Road and
Let me ask you
Hinton
real
Cemetery.
quick, one,
Yes, ma'am.
so there was a new form, a cover letter,
Correct.
so we're going over the new one.
Yes.
You wanna cover what the
Yes,
changes are?
I will be getting there
Okay,
in a hot
thanks.
second.
Just for everybody's
It
benefit.
should be around, if not, I have extra copies if I'm gonna get shared. They're over here. Here.
I think we've got him, at least.
Yeah, Dan's not here.
Yeah, we've got, we
Are we
we
on?
have enough.
Do you want one, Mary, for yourself?
No, we're good. Oh, there you go. You got it.
Throw it there. I'll throw it out in the end.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Elise.
It's okay.
I just wanna make sure we were all on the same page.
Yeah, it was a misprint on my side of things, and so I tried to mitigate it, but it happens. Anywho, so this is the situation here. The roads are a little bit hard to hear, but this is the part of Davis Turkeyfoot Road that comes up, kind of goes east-west for a while, and then continues north. And at that point, it has a fork where it starts to go traveling east-west, where it becomes Davis Turkeyfoot and Burgess Smith. And then on the easternmost side, it goes from Davis Turkeyfoot to Davis Turkeyfoot, and then Hinton Cemetery continues south. So I just wanted to kind of illustrate that it has a lot of roads all in that area, and it's up in that northern part of the county, so it just adds a little spice to the conversation. This is the proposed plat here. So this is where the amended portion comes in. I printed an older version where I had not updated the axis for it, and that's what this version is. It just kind of clarifies the axis a little bit more clearly. Parcel 1, which is the one prior to the intersection or the offshoot of Burgess Smith and Davis Turkeyfoot, has a proposed entrance approximately 150 feet from the property adjoining to the west. The parcel 2, which has the portion of the property that fronts Davis Turkeyfoot in its entirety and has kind of that like up point where Burgess Smith kind of pops off. That portion there has a proposed entrance 50 feet west of the existing entrance on the site. There were some issues with site distance and that curve of the road that you can kind of see on the plat, where it was recommended by road superintendent and Ben that it be kind of shifted over. And then the parcels 3 and parcels 4, which are the two larger parcels, they're both over 10.5 acres, will be sharing an entrance off of Hinton Cemetery after Davis Turkeyfoot kind of does its hook shot north and Hinton Cemetery travels south. They have a shared access easement that they will be operating out of east of that intersection. As of now, and to my understanding, all entrances have been approved locations by the Scott County Road Superintendent, so these are what will be going forth unless otherwise decided by someone else. Besides that, that's pretty much all that we have there. Staff does recommend approval of the final subdivision plat. It satisfies all of our requirements as understood, with the 5 applicable conditions on the board above, that they be subject to all applicable zoning ordinance and subdivision regs, that any revisions be reviewed prior to everybody and just get re-reviewed, that they provide digital copies of plats, that it's valid for 2 years, and that they receive approval from the Scott County Road Fire Department prior to being filed with the courthouse. Besides that, that is all I have.
Any questions for Elise?
Where is the,
Well, hang on, we'll get to you, ma'am. I promise. What we do is we'll hear the applicant next, and then we'll take questions from the audience. Thank you. Any questions for Elise? Thank you. And now the applicant, bring the applicant up to speak.
So this is the tract of land.
State your name and address
Sorry.
for the record.
Rita Jones. And this is a tract of land that is 99% wooded. There's just some cleared area. There used to be a house there where that Turkeyfoot and Hinton Cemetery come together, where that entrance is. There used to be a home there. Mrs. Wells had a home there that burned soon after her death. And there used to be a home also on where that shared entrance cuts to your left and goes to parcel 4. There is a single wide mobile home which needs to be removed that's on parcel 2 right now. And I will either remove that prior to a sale or afterwards. I'm not gonna allow any single wides or double wides for this property. So I assume they'll be nice built, sitting in the woods kind of homes. I'll be here to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Jones, Mrs. Jones? Thank you. We'll have some questions and then she'll answer them back.
You were just
Oh, Rita,
So the final condition down there about the fire department, a lot of times they will either ask for a hydrant or mark where it is, and there's a lot on here. Is there a hydrant on any of these?
There isn't a hydrant close. We're on Kentucky American Water. I'm hoping that they'll provide a hydrant.
Okay. Thank you.
any other questions for Mrs. Jones? All right, thank you. Now we'll open it up to the audience. If you want to come up and state your name and address. And Mrs. Jones, take notes, and if they have questions for you, we'll have you back up to hand, hopefully.
Hello, Margaret Rice, and I live here in Georgetown, 500 South Hamilton Street. And I have property there on Hinton Cemetery Road, just within probably a couple miles of the said property. And I'm glad to hear there's no single wide or double wide, so would that be in the deed? That would be a deed restriction?
That would be a restriction.
Okay, very good. And then, one of the things I noticed, it said that they're certifying the private sewage disposal system proposed, is approved. So what are you proposing for a sewage system?
Each home will have its own septic. And probably most of that area is going to either.
You know what,
be-
actually, let's do it this way, because you're
Sure.
supposed to ask us, if you
Okay.
don't mind, ask them all and then
Okay.
take questions, or I'll
Yes.
write them down and then
I
we'll have.
apologize.
No, that's fine.
I didn't know
It's-
the protocol.
Well, because it's recorded and then we get into people hollering and not hollering, but speaking, and a lot of times we can't get them on the microphone. Yeah, there is hollering. So go ahead and ask questions and then Mrs. Jones will answer them all in one. So what's the second one? So septic was the first. And then
Septic, I would be really concerned if they were lagoon systems and, going from one property to 4 and just having 4 lagoons in that area. I would hope for other, I was wondering if there could be a deed restriction that would limit that as well.
Okay, and then next question, or any other questions?
The entrance, the 2 together, is that an easement on, I think it's number 3? Is that an easement on number 3, that little blocked out square, or is it actually a drive that's in part of 4?
So we'll have her answer that one as well,
Sorry.
or Elise. No, that's fine. So driveway or easement.
And those are my questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who has any more questions? Come on up and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Sandra Waters, and I am the owner of the property adjacent to the right of the entrance, the 2 different little entrances there on Kenton Cemetery Road. You said that the county had planned, but the county had approved the entrances. Where is that filed? And I'd like a copy of that. And then also, pertaining to the water, where will they, right now, there's not water on that property. Where will Kentucky American, I guess, provide water to that? Will they be coming off of my property?
Okay, we'll get that answered as well.
While you're,
Ms.
Waters, while you were up there, do you have a fire hydrant on your property? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? There you go. Again, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Rita Thompson, 124 Lackford Drive. I am the owner of the farm that it's adjacent to on 1056 in Cemetery Road. To be quite honest, I just found out a couple weeks ago that this was happening, so I'm just kind of curious. They brought up a couple good questions. The farm that I own is a 58-acre hill farm. On the plats, are we talking one house per plat? Are we talking several houses per plats? I guess I'm wondering, how many people's coming next door?
They are limited to one house per parcel, correct?
One house per parcel, and then on parcels 3 and 4, if they were feeling so inclined, they do have the density for a secondary residence with a conditional use permit approved with the County Board of Adjustment.
So really, truly, you could have 4 to potentially 6
Okay.
total, on those 4 parcels, if that answers my question.
So
But to
we'll,
go to 2 on the 3 and 4, they would have to go.
They have to go
Board
with
of-
me and the County Board of Adjustment.
and so the county would step in and put some fire hydrants down there, hopefully.
Well, who determines when and where and who pays for those fire
I'm
hydrants,
sure
Charlie?
Kentucky American determines
Kentucky American.
everything about that.
I mean, we got water on our farm. I mean, it's got to go up and down, Turkeyfoot Davis Road. There's got to be water there.
Ms. Thompson, do you have a fire hydrant?
No,
Oh, you don't either, okay.
no.
But you got,
But what I'm saying, we've got water on our farm, so there's water on Hinton Cemetery Road.
Gotcha.
So I was just checking to see how many neighbors I'm getting, so.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Probably full.
Anybody else have questions, concerns? Again, state your name and address for the record.
Kevin Farley, 185 Davis Turkeyfoot Road, and I border, I've got just under 100 acres to the sort of south side of that property. Good question about the lagoon. My question would be, is I know all that area, because I'm on it a lot, and this large, the 10-acre property is, there's sort of a holler back through there that leads into me, so I have concern and questions about that lagoon system. To answer one question, the closest hydrant I know of is Turkeyfoot Christian Church, which is probably 2.5 miles, 2 miles from that. And that water comes down in front of my place. Sorry, it's my first time doing this, and I don't know where to direct this, but I'm going to direct it toward the commission. I travel that road every day, and I drive a Chevrolet 2500, and you can't fit 2 of them on that road. So the more traffic you put out there, the more dangerous it gets. I've seen a guy hit on a motorcycle and almost killed. Is there a plan for road and infrastructure if we're going to travel that path? I guess that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on or in favor or against this application? Otherwise, we'll have the applicant come up and answer a few questions, and then probably staff could answer a couple of them as well.
I'll do my best.
Thank you, Mrs. Jones.
As to Mrs. Rice's questions, there are 4 tracks. I'm assuming there'll only be 4 houses. If it ever becomes a situation where parcel 3 and 4 would ask to be re-subdivided, you would certainly have a voice at that time for a variance board. Is that right, Louise?
Yeah, they could do it with or without. If they wanted to have it before subdivision, they could consider a conditional use permit. Otherwise, they would have to come back to us because they've been previously subdivided now.
Right.
So it would,
You would have a voice.
we would have
And the
some
neighbors-
form of a
Neighbors
meeting.
would get informed or a
Yeah.
letter.
Yeah, they would have some form of a meeting.
So we're assuming 4 parcels at this time. That's what I planned for. And technically, there's been 3 homes on this piece of land already. There's a single wide up there at that second entrance, Mrs. Wells' home that burned. They're on that shared entrance. And then that parcel 4 had an old trailer back that ridge. I don't know if many people knew it was there or not, but it did have a trailer back there. The remnants are still there. 3 and 4's entrance is going to be a shared entrance. For so many feet inside, they will both own that entrance and they will both maintain it. And then parcel 4 will cut to the left and parcel 3 would cut to the right. Kentucky American is all along Davis, Turkeyfoot, and Hinton Cemetery, to my knowledge. And I know that I will have to address the fire hydrant situation. I own a house on down Davis, Turkeyfoot, that I have to pay a really high insurance premium for because there are no fire hydrants down there. So if we can get a fire hydrant here, then that would certainly help the neighborhood as far as fire protection and your insurance rates. What I understand about the fire hydrants is Kentucky American is pretty liberal with them whenever you ask for a new subdivision, and they They charge the county a fee annually to maintain those. They pay for them, they put them in, they charge the county a fee. And you say, well, then that's costing our county, and it is. But just think of what the tax base is doing when you take 4 parcels, you make them taxable not as farmland, but as rural residential, and you build 4 nice homes on it. So I think it really offsets those costs. Have I missed anything? Is there any other
I
questions?
think the other questions will be for staff.
Well,
Okay.
this sewage treatment or what?
Oh, Laguna
Oh,
four.
Lagoon. So I have not pulled any perk tests, but I know the area well enough that I'm fairly positive the answer will be that it does not perk. And they usually have 2 remedies for that. They have what they call a fill and wait, where the people, after they tell them where their house is going to be situated, how many bedrooms it's going to be, they'll come out and test, and they'll require them to bring in topsoil to make it tall enough for the lines to evaporate as they're supposed to, and then they have to wait a year before they actually start using those. Or a lagoon would be the second issue. And I know a lot of people are anti-lagoon. I own 2 properties that have them. They're my least maintenance system that I have. And there are actually 2 septic tanks that go in, and then a line runs to an evaporation pool. So there are no solids in those lagoons. It's nothing but water, and they're fenced to keep everything out of it. So, and they're also placed where there's no runoff from them that can come to you. They've got a berm around them to keep water from rushing down into them. So that's typical for that area. Any new construction has those, I believe. Now, there might be some of that would perk, but I would be surprised.
Thank you, Mrs. Jones. Elise, would you step up? I think I've got the 2 questions for you would be, A, where would they find the approved entrances recorded? Is it in the county building?
It would be on the plat when it gets finalized. That would be kind of the documented
Okay,
location.
so that's where the approved entrances would be on the plat. And then the last one is a widening of the road.
I'm unsure of any widening projects along Davis Turkey for Hinton Cemetery. They are county maintained, so if the county identifies them as roads that are in need of improvement, added shoulder, a lot of problems with the subgrade, they could consider going out, but I haven't heard anything.
So it'd be up to the county to answer your question, sir. Up to the county to widen these roads. So, and I agree. I mean, I travel the country roads all the time, and the further you get out the country, the more narrow those roads get. Because there's some roads, I don't know how you can get 2 vehicles past each other. They look like a driveway, not a road. So I agree. All right, thank you. And unless anybody has any other questions for Lisa.
I have a question.
Come back up and again, just for the record, state your name again because this is recorded, so we try to put.
I'm Central Gardens. It's not clear, after the subdivisions, the land is sold, if there's gonna be covenant restrictions filed, so the owners have to follow. I mean, like this lagoon, open sewage, I can't even imagine why the county, especially as many hills, and the way the water flows in that area is allowed. So that's my question. Are there gonna be covenant restrictions applied to these 4 parcels, and will the owners have to maintain and?
Charlie, I guess you probably as our legal counsel can answer that, unless you think
Well,
that's more of a question for
There will
Ben.
be restrictions on it if the seller puts restrictions on them. We don't put deed restrictions on the property.
Well, that's my
So
question.
if Ms. Jones decides, I mean, what she's already said, there'll be a restriction on the type of dwelling. So there will be some, but whatever else she puts on, that's her call, that's not our call. And as far as the lagoons, goodness, we've got them all over the county, and I've not heard of any open sewage anywhere. So, but I'm not in that realm of business, so maybe I'm missing something, but I'm not aware of open sewage being approved anywhere.
Ben, do you want to touch on that at all?
No, health department.
Yeah, okay. All right.
So,
Hopefully that answers.
so we don't know when will we know what covenant restrictions are gonna be applied to these 4 parcels?
When she files them in the county clerk's office ahead of issuing any deeds to the property. And I dare say it won't be done until after a final plat is approved, because there's no point other than that. But once the final plat is approved and signed in the record clerk's office, then prior to doing any deed, she will need to file whatever restrictions, or she will include them in each deed. That's entirely up to her.
So Jones, do you have other ones planned outside of the dwelling type that you mentioned?
No, I didn't plan any others. The health department will determine the sewage question. It's all in their hands.
Okay, so the entrances that are approved by the county will not be documented until the plat has been filed, is that correct? Okay.
Well, it has to be identified before it's final approval. Surely, before it's actually.
I'm sure they've got a record. This is generally where, you know, it ultimately becomes public record. But I'm sure the road department's got documentation on what they've approved, and she already signs the plat.
There's no official thing with the road department. That's why we have these documented on a final plat. So when they get approved, JR and I go out, look at them, make sure that they are shown in these locations, and that's documentation when the plat's recorded.
Is there a specific concern you have relative to them?
Just the two entrances that are across from my property there, because my entrance is there, shortly into the cemetery road.
But that's an existing entrance.
Yes, it is.
So what is your concern about an entrance there?
About all of the traffic that's gonna go in and out right there, that one little spot.
But right now,
If there's one family on each of those, I mean, I don't think it's gonna be that great a traffic impact.
My biggest concern are the restrictions on the sewer. How they handle that. And that-
Charlie, would you agree that's the health department, really?
Yeah, I'm sure that a seller could put on there certain restrictions on that. I've never seen that. That's left up to the health department. Now, if the health department says you have a choice, you can have one of these two systems, then it's up to the people installing the systems. So, I mean, that's really, almost always, ultimate user and health department make those decisions, and then, you know, that's what they do. That's already after Ms. Jones has sold the property. I doubt Ms. Jones is gonna be installing anything
No.
like that on the property.
But to her concerns, there's a setback of 50 foot away from the property line for any of those septic systems to be.
Lagoon has 100. Lagoon has 100 feet from the setback.
So it's 100.
Oh, okay.
In Lagoon instances,
Right.
septic can be 50.
Okay.
Sorry, don't mean to belabor this. Code Department 185 Davis Turkey Foot Road. I guess one thing I'll point out is where the property lays on the bottom of that bowl, and to the point that I've got a sign from J.R. Brandenburg, and I closed the road on that side because, does anybody know that road at all? And that's one of the first places that floods in the county. And some of the high-thinking people we have, I'm the turnaround spot, and sometimes the turnaround is in my field like this. So I take this pretty personal, right? I know we can't stop growth, but I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on the lagoon, because I've seen in torrential rains, lagoons overflow. And again, I'm the bottom of that bowl, and it's coming down, it's coming at me. I find it to be a big problem.
Now, I wouldn't argue with you on some of the torrential rains we've had. I'm talking about just their operations, but you're right, we've had some ridiculous rains in the past.
Because I'm right across from the church right there, and West Fork Eagle Creek is one whole side of my farm, and I get every bit of that, so it's very concerning.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Anyone else want to speak? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Snow, any comment? Look like you want to say something.
I would like to say something. Yeah.
Want to say something, you're allowed to say it.
No, personally, I probably,
Charlie, can we keep it down there?
We're talking about the lagoon,
We're solving so many problems, Mr. Chairman.
all the lagoon problems.
before I make the motion, I think there are restrictions that you can put on, but it needs to be done when the deed is made. And if it's made, when the deed is made, there's no outing on that. I mean, it's got to be so that it says no, single wives. Nobody can ever put that on there until somebody else, some way or other, gets that thing changed around through the law. But other than that, it's hill land, it's close to town, it's close to the dump, in one sense, not far from it. I don't see anything wrong with it, provided it be for, so therefore I'm gonna make a motion that we, accept the number is,
PDP 2022 dash 36, thank you. I got a motion by Mr. Stone to approve,
I'll second.
a second by Mrs. Singer, do a roll call. Mr. Shirley,
yes.
Mr. Mifflin,
Yes.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mrs. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Vest, Mr. Green,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes, motion carries. Come up here and sign. Thank you all appreciate all the input. Next on the, agenda is PDP, dash 22-40 Living Waters Fellowship Edition, preliminary development plan to construct a 6,000 square foot building for daycare and meeting space located at 172 Gunnell Road.
I would like to make just one quick amendment and clarification from the applicant. The proposal is, and I've corrected it on the board, the proposal is not for the additional meeting room. They're wishing to operate a school on one portion of it mostly. I suppose they could have meetings in school spaces, but they did clarify that it is more of a school operation in that building and daycare. This is a 5.6 acre parcel located off of Gunnell Road, just north of Delaplane and Oxford Village, zoned for agricultural use and surrounded by agricultural zone properties. There are a series of variances and waivers that have been requested as part of this development plan for the site, and we'll kind of go through them in further detail shortly, but I just listed them here as a reduction in the interior landscaped area from 10% to 4.8%, reduction of the tree canopy requirements from 13% to 5.38%, a waiver for gravel parking lot / storage area, and a waiver for the VUA perimeter landscaping around the 3,996 square foot drop-off cap that will be serving the new structure. This is kind of an out satellite area, so you can see Oxford Village to the south, Muddy Forts to the west, as well as the business park of Toyota, and then to the east, which is kind of eastern northern-ish central Scott, so it's kind of far. This is an aerial of the property. The north is facing down to my left, your right. Just for general clarification, I felt like this was the best aerial shot of the property that I could find, and unfortunately, changing it around would make it look really weird. So this is an aerial shot here. Currently, they have a worship space, parking lot, they have a retention pond in area, and then some accessory structures on that property. In 2006, this plan was reviewed and approved, and this is the kind of the aerial shot that was submitted. They've since had the addition. You can kind of see the change in coloration on that roof. It was a proposed future addition on that development plan. And then they also have that parking lot, detention areas, and some other kind of fun features we'll get into in a second. So to operate a daycare and a school in the agricultural district, we require a conditional use permit. They have been granted 2 conditional use permits, the first of which, S-2021-34, is for the operations of the daycare and the existing worship space on the site. And then this year, as part of S-2022-16, there was a conditional use permit for expanded operations of a daycare program and school in a proposed structure, and this development plan is that proposed structure that's coming through. This is the development plan is submitted, so since it's kind of zoomed out and there's a lot of topographical things, I did the liberty of kind of labeling what the new additions are to the property. It is included on your 11 by 17, but again, since that size is kind of weird, it's difficult to see a lot of that detail. I felt it appropriate to kind of point it out. The area in red is the 6,000 square foot daycare and school addition. The area, the circle in yellow/orange is a drop-off path at 3,000, so 4,000 or so square foot drop-off path, and then that central square is just a playground area for the children. I wanted to kind of point that out as such.
And that's existing now.
That is not. What is existing is to your right of it. It's the larger rectangle that kind of fits there, and then the parking lot.
Okay.
And so this would be west of the current situation that's on that site. They did, I want to just address this one right now. They did request a variance or a waiver to the drop-off path for VOA perimeter landscaping. It was later determined that that wouldn't be something that would be required of that due to the location kind of in the center of the property. It's not, there is enough space for the light to be diffused, which is mostly what a VOA perimeter is for that light and noise diffusion. And since there's not like a property right next door and abutting it, staff felt it was appropriate to not have to require that of the applicant to make those plantings around that area. So I want to address that now. Staff did notice in a site walkthrough and in a general kind of viewing of the site and that site aerial that there is a 7,700 square foot gravel parking lot roughly on the northeast side of the property, kind of parallel with Gunna Pike. I've outlined it here and zoomed it in. It is on the property, but it is very faint. It's very difficult to read in that. 11 by 17s in our printer don't copy very well sometimes, and unfortunately I think that is very evidenced here where you just cannot distinguish these types of things. So I've kind of zoomed in on it here. It was put in, we have no development plan, no request for it, and as part of these processes, you can technically have gravel, but we do require a development plan, and you need to request a waiver for it. So we've seeded in industrial sites doing large tractor storage, mostly, or trailer storage, mostly around like online transport and some industrial sites, and it's very atypical to see one in this area, especially as it's visibly showing that there's parking vehicles on that site. You can see in this aerial shot here, it's kind of small, but you can see some structures and a bus and some vans and things on that site. So it does appear, and it has been interpreted that that is parking, which is something that you need a waiver for in any situation. While it was placed improperly, or at least not without proper processes, which it is a weird anomaly that we require that and everything, staff recommends approval of a waiver to allow for its continued existence on the site. We believe that it's limited use and probably used for overflow and maybe some larger events. Parking is likely appropriate. Again, that's up for interpretation from you guys, but generally speaking, it doesn't seem to cause much harm to the site, and it kind of fits the character a little bit. If it is approved, we do require that they are subject to all requirements of parking lots, so interior landscape areas, VOA perimeter, drive aisle, and space sizing, as well as staff has included condition, which is specifically condition number 9, if you go to the last page, mentioning that if the gravel parking lot is approved, that the applicant submit a plan on how they're going to address gravel migration. Because if it's fresh gravel and it's very like that thick layer of gravel tends to migrate onto roads and onto grass and lots, and that can cause a lot of damage to pavement and roads and stuff like that. And it should be, trying to be mitigating it would be in the best interest of all the surrounding property owners. So we've included that condition that they submit a plan on how they're going to work to retain it, either with like a buffer or some type of kind of burn type situation. Some type of conversation. It's obviously open for discussion, but something that would address any of those concerns about gravel migration and getting into places that it doesn't really need to be. So as part of this, we are requiring a landscape plan. This is the 2006 landscaping plan. And, we did do some aerial views of the site, and I've kind of included it up here. So the areas in blue are areas that were defined as a landscaped area, but have since had the trees removed. The areas in green are those trees that are still remaining from the 2006 plan. And then the areas that are Xed out in black are those that have been removed in their entirety and have been flattened. We still have the same standard requirement of 10% of vehicle use area, not excluding loading and unloading areas. That VUA area, 10% of it needs to be reflected in landscaped area just for general beautification of the site, as well as shade and the benefits of lights and sound mitigation and overall, just again, appearance and aesthetic of a site. And the removal of it was, I won't speak to that, but that part of things was done without really consideration or consultation of the staff, and it's about 661 square feet of interior landscaped area. I would like to note that as part of landscaped areas, we do require trees. At the time of the 2006 plan, the standards were 2 trees for every 250 square feet of interior landscaped area. We've since adjusted those standards due to issues with trees dying and overcrowding of certain sites, and have now reduced it to 1 tree for every 250 feet of landscaped area. So at the time of planting, they were required to have 18 trees. Under current standards, they would be required to have 9 trees, and currently on the site, in those landscaped areas that are all circled, there are 7. So that kind of brings up the interior landscaped area variance that they've requested at this point. Staff is against this this variance request due to the cited impacts and the benefits of having some kind of improvements to the area and allowing flow and other kind of benefits to the site that we require this of for all of the sites. So churches across the county and other facilities and commercial developments, industrial developments, and otherwise are required to have this. So this isn't atypical to expect that they have some form of agricultural or greenery in the parking lots, just to kind of break up the area and offer some benefits to the site. So as a result of that, we think that it's appropriate and that request should be denied based off of staff recommendation. In addition, at the time of the 2006 plan, there was no requirement for tree canopy. We've since passed ordinances and regulations that require canopy coverage. And in agricultural areas, it ranges from 10% to 15%, depending upon the retained canopy of the site. I've circled all the areas that are roughly included in the tree canopy coverage right now. And so currently, based off of the site, it appears that there's about 13,000 square feet of tree canopy, which if you reflected against the total site acreage of 5.6 acres, would be about 5.38% tree canopy coverage, which is where that other request for a variance is coming from. So just requesting that no further trees be planted on the site, and just whatever is there will be what is there and no more new ones. If we base it off of the current standards, 5.38 would require that they would need to have 13% of tree canopy, or a total of 31,000 square feet of canopy, which would equate to an additional 18,000 square feet of canopy. However, it is staff practice, and we've done it, most recent application would be with Triple J Farms in their commercial edition, where instead of comparing it against the whole site coverage, we instead just base it off of a site that's being interrupted, or I can't find the word for it, altered and developed. So based off of rough calculations of those areas kind of within the basins and everything and north of that, we've determined that we can make an adjusted acreage to 3.5 acres, which would mean that the canopy coverage of 13,000 square feet is about 8.6% as opposed to that 5.38, and which would mean that they would need to satisfy the 11% required canopy, and we need to plant 3,600 square feet of canopy as opposed to the 18,000. So the staff believes that with that adjustment in mind, that kind of combats it enough in that there can be trees that can be planted, and the additional interior landscape trees, so the 2 additional trees in that area, as well as the requirements for treating the gravel parking lot like a parking lot and having VUA perimeter along the north and east sides to prevent lights from interrupting the properties to the north and east. And kind of that cross glare situation will be a sufficient one that kind of satisfies a large portion of it, and then that may just require a few expertise kind of getting put in maybe an open space or maybe around the playground, making it a little bit more shaded and protected in that area, or maybe they put one closer to the building. Just with that in mind and having that adjusted one, staff feels like that's sufficient, that the variance for tree canopy be denied, because again, we are accommodating for it in just this consideration. With all things considered on landscaping and everything like that, staff does recommend approval of the preliminary development plan with 2 waivers included. So the first waiver is the gravel parking and storage area be allowed to continue existence on the site. And then as part of that, we had internal discussion a lot. And if the gravel parking lot or storage area is approved, there would be a waiver to the interior landscaped area in that parking lot alone. So the paved one would still be required to adhere to interior landscaped area requirements, but the gravel lot, due to just the complications of having to essentially have a pancaked concrete area that you would have to define off and put a tree in, that be waived, but not the requirements of the VUA perimeter landscaping requirements. So again, that north and west side shown in blue here would be required, but we wouldn't require those little islands to kind of break up that area. We've included our conditions of approval, kind of, these are all of them that we've already seen. The ones that are additional ones that are atypical of these development plans is conditions 7, 8, and 9. 7 is that they replace all improperly trees and interior landscaped areas to current standards. So those 2 additional trees in that 661 square feet of interior landscaped island be reinstalled. It's up for discussion on the location. They just need to be reinstalled. That they satisfy all requirements of Scott County Fire Department. They are operating the daycare at it, and just appropriate that they have the appropriate fire suppression mechanisms that they may determine or they may not. That's up for them. They just need their approval. And that if the gravel parking lot and storage area is approved, they submit a plan to prevent gravel migration for staff review prior to or as part of the final development plan approval process.
Thank you, Elise. Any questions for Elise?
Yes, back up in background, you said the operation of daycare program were approved as a conditional use permit
Yes.
in 2021. So was that with their existing property or with this additional property being considered?
The first one is for the existing space.
Okay.
The second one expands like the age range as well as the location. So it can be the church and now this new building.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
It's a good question.
Thank you, Elise.
No problem.
I will bring the applicant up. State your name. Are you okay with all the conditions?
No, I'm not. Could you use some of these things for me? Go to the gravel parking lot that you're all calling the parking lot. Okay. So we store our bus there in our van. If you look at our aerial shots, or their aerial shots, you can see that that's during the day. People pull in there all the time. Most of the time it's Kentucky Water, the electric company in there that park in that area, okay? And they're in there all the time for sure. The next thing that I want to go to is the landscaping around that.
This one or?
That's on there, thank you. Everything there around that road, well, that is all easements for all the water utilities, the internet, all that. So they're digging that up constantly from our church. Water leaks and all that. So that's an easement through there coming there in the road. Okay? There's the lines are buried there, the electrical stuff's buried there, all the water's buried there. So even if I put the trees there, then they're gonna dig them right back up when they come in there to repair whatever they got going on, plus the root's gonna get into what they've got going on, so. That lot was recently used by the company that was putting in the internet from one end of the line to the other for the business park over there. They wouldn't, nobody let them park nowhere around there, and they asked me if they could park in that area, and they were allowed to do that. Other than that, for our church use, that parking lot is not used for parking. That parking lot is a storage area, gravel storage area. We park our bus there and our van there. They're there, the bus is no longer being used, and the van is used very, very seldom. So it is temporary storage for those, and that's what we do with that. We also drive through there to get around to the backside of our property, so that we can get around by the fence and go down through there as well. So that is a storage area regardless of how they look at it as a parking lot, because it's not a parking lot. It's not intended for a parking lot, never has been. The second thing I'm gonna go to is the slide with the church parking lot in front of it. The black two things you see there. The one over here on the far side, the little narrow one with the black X in it, that right there is a tree that we replanted twice. The ground, the clay ground won't let it grow. So we finally took it out and we concreted it. The one in front, the big X, that's the front door of our church. So once again, when these plans were developed by Thoroughbred Engineering, I didn't know that I was supposed to be involved in any of this. They were developing the plans, they submitted it, and it was brought to me, and I said, well, why in the world do we got something like that in front of our door? Well, planning and zoning was, no, it's on your plans, you gotta put it. Now those trees, those 3 trees was never there, not ever. They never made us put them in, because they did see that's the entrance to our church. It's the only way you get in there unless you go into the road. And there's parking blocks on every bit of that. Can't get a wheelchair in there, you can't do nothing, okay? So that was removed after the 4-inch curbing is around and the grass thing there. We put stepping stones in there. We had several people trip. So we took that out completely, okay? Now we got a lady with spinal bifida, is that what she got? So she pulls in, she has to come to that place to park her van. She lets her little seat out to the side of her door, she gets out, and that allows her to come out. But if you come to my parking lot, and I think you were out there the other day, I wasn't sure I see you, and I appreciate that, at least you came and looked at it. That's the only place she can get in now and get her wheelchair out of the van. So, you know, it's, for us to put that back is totally detrimental to what we're doing. So, no, I don't want to do that. We're not going to do that. I mean, I don't want to be mean, but that's the only way people can get in and out of our church without falling. So we don't want to put that back. If I need to plant a tree somewhere, that's fine. They said it themselves, they had so many trees together, the trees couldn't live. And that's the truth. We've replanted trying to keep them alive. This corner one up here, we got 1 tree living. The other tree is gone, and it's been gone for about 4 or 5 years now, because they died too. Instead of putting it back, we just took it out and let it go. But that 1 tree's still in there, okay? So that's what's going on with all that. The blue one up of the road where you come out, and if you'd have stopped, I'd have showed you, because it was a good example, okay? I come out trying to catch you when I seen you. Tractor and trailers turn around in there for whatever reason, I don't know, but you can come in there and you look, and they're dragging their trailers all the way around that parking lot. And I really don't care. It don't matter to me. If they want to turn around there, it's better than trying to back out that road, because evidently they've made a wrong turn. But anyway, when they come out of there, they catch those 2 trees with that trailer. Okay, they run over those trees twice. We finally just took them out and we mowed that, keeping that as nice as we can. We took them out because I can't stand out there and stop them from running over them, and I don't plan to keep going out there and redoing it after they do run over them. The other 2 blue ones there against my building, those 2 trees, okay, they grew fine. They grew too good. They had all kinds of buds, all kinds of leaves, and every bit of that blows right into the front door of that church. You can't get in and out there no time. That there are any leaves, the buds off the trees, the little spindle things off the things that like little whirly, whatever you call them there. And it's a constant mess in and out of the building. So we took those trees out. We got a nice flagpole in the middle one, okay, trying to keep the property looking good for what it's for. And then that other one is a mowed area. We keep the grass mowed down as nice as you can there. And that's what we do with that. I highly ask once again to give me the waivers I'm asking for, because if I put stuff up on the other side of what they're calling the gravel parking lot, once again, it's in the easement there, guys. where all the water is, the electric's there, the phone lines are there, everything's right there. The internet, everything is right down that parking lot area, up between that and Gunnell Road. So our other parking lot don't matter because it's back far enough that could be in there. Now, my final statement on that. Schools, you guys know it the same as I do. You go out here into this county and they don't have none of this stuff in their parking lots. Nothing. Nothing to meet nothing like what we're doing. So if they're gonna let the state do this without saying anything to them, why are they wearing us out over this? We removed what we needed to do our work here, okay? If the schools are allowed to just come in and do anything they want to do, why are they messing with us all the time? So I'm asking you to give me the waiver. The next thing is bushes all the way around this property. This is a school. You can talk to Thoroughbred Engineering, the guy doing my drawings right now. I tell you, listen, limited access to my buildings. People are killing kids. They think it's funny. People are shooting up everybody in the churches. They think that's funny. I don't need a bunch of bushes and trees for people to hide behind, okay? I'm trying to watch over the lives of who I got around there too, and it is a serious issue. If you come to our church, you'll find people in our church all day long with the guns in their backs because of what's going on, and all of you people know that. So I'm asking you to give me my variances. If I need to plant a few trees out there to suit everything, I got no problem with that. But I got a big problem with bushes for people to hide behind. And I got a big problem with putting something up against Gunnell Road that they're just gonna be digging up the next time they have a water leak or they gotta fix a phone line and all that stuff. So with that, that's all I've got to say. I appreciate it if you give me my waivers and then we'll go from there.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Oh, yes, gravel migration. Just a second. Gravel migration, that parking lot's been there for over 2 years now, okay? The third parking lot. They don't gravel migrate nowhere. Everything is dug down, it's sunk in. The lady from Florida that paid to have that put in. We had that bus on the parking lot and that van. And she said, why don't y'all move that over there? I said, don't want it in your grass. She said, I'll pay to put the rock in there and we'll put the mat down under it and you can start parking that junky thing over there. And that's what we did, okay? That is dug down. It was graded, dug down. The mats are all down so the gravel don't sink, and it's all in there. The only gravel that's out, period, and you can walk out there and look, is that little bit that is in the middle of the parking lot there, right off the edge. It's there for one reason. When they came in and graded that down, the company that put in the internet conduit, they are the ones that graded that over there. It's not there because of water. And we just have not taken the time to shove it back. But for migration purposes, we do have a tractor and a blade, and anytime it migrated, we'd be more than happy to put it back because we're not gonna let nothing be a mess out there to start out with.
Stay up there, Mr. Gauntz. I think she's got a couple questions for you, and I'm gonna have
What's
to.
the, first one I'm gonna pose, what's the planned age range, grade range, and enrollment?
The school, the daycare will be from infants up till 3 years old. Then it'll be preschool, okay? And then we got a regular school we're gonna start as well.
Through like
So-
middle school?
Yeah, there'll be a total of about 80 children there, total. So that's what the fill and wait septic system's in for now. The health department's gonna be out there. We don't put all that in, and we're waiting for a year to get all that done.
And then the stepping stone thing, can you go through that again, sorry? What the stepping stone issue was that you brought up?
Right here, this one right here,
Uh-huh.
so that was a grass inlet. They never made us put trees in it. There was never a tree in that, okay? But that's the entrance to our door. If you look on the plans that wrote up a little more, that's the front door to our church. Okay, that's the only place you can get in because everything else is parking stones. Okay, you can't get in there. And they were making me put it in, so we did. I tried to get them to let me take it out, but they wouldn't let me do it. Planning and zoning. Here's what they told me, and this is what I told the director when I come and talked to him. I said, they told me the last time we done this, that I ain't making you do nothing, it's what you've on your plans. So Thoroughbred Engineering in Georgetown is the one that drew these up. I never seen them. I've never seen them. I was busy working at Toyota and trying to pasture, and when we come in, I said, why is this here? But they made us go with that, okay? So what we done was, we took that grass thing and we put 2 double sets of stepping stones through there. And then we had about 3 or 4 different people that tripped in that, trying to get up on it. So I said, we're not doing this. So I went in there and took it out, and then I re-concreted it.
question I have, and, I've been on planning and zoning almost 8 years now, and I think we've only had 2 other instances in the last 8 years where somebody put a gravel parking lot without permission. And I don't know if you didn't know you needed permission.
No, I did not.
So what happened is, the other cases, I mean, you're saying we don't have enough room between the road and the gravel parking lot to put bushes. I mean,
No, there's room, but it's over top of their
That's
easement.
what I'm saying.
That's where all their
It's
stuff's at.
So had it been done right, we wouldn't have allowed you to put that gravel all the way up to the easement, but because you're here asking for forgiveness instead of permission, of, hey, you know, we've got a gravel parking lot all the way up to the easement, there's no room to put bushes.
Well, once again,
I'm not sure that's Thoroughbred's fault or whatever, but somebody
No.
should have gotten permission to put the gravel parking lot in.
yeah, that had nothing to do with none of them. The lady asked me we need to store the bus somewhere other than the parking lot, and she agreed to pay for it. Now, I thought we still lived in America. I didn't know we were living in Russia. We had to get permission to do stuff on our own property.
You
Okay,
do as
we
far as
own the
planning
land.
and zoning.
We own the land.
Right.
Okay, so this is bothering me big time. If we were doing something that really made a difference, then I would understand that. But that's just a storage area to put stuff on. People don't park there for church. They just don't do it.
Well,
Okay.
we've had other instances too that I can think of in the last 8 years I've been on here. Charlie, what is I mean, if they put it that close to the easement, there's no room for bushes. I mean, you mentioned he's got a tractor or something, do they pull up some part of that parking lot to put the
Sure,
shrubbery?
that's what's always been done, because every property's got utilities in front of
Right.
their lot. I mean, that's not something that's unique to your property. Everybody's got that, everybody in town, everybody in the county, if they've got any utilities at all. And they just simply, that's why they have to set things back, they got to stay out of the right of way, but they've got to put up the screening, that's what.
And
we
it's
always
America,
do.
it's not Russia, but I mean, we have the rules of planning and zoning to do things right, so it's done for you and the neighbors.
So let me ask one question.
Sure.
Then why are we not making our public school systems?
Because they're not under our jurisdiction,
Because what?
they're not under our jurisdiction.
So they're in our county. Scott County, the Board of Education's the
Well,
one
Mr.
that approved to do them.
Let me tell you, I pick up grandchildren at 2 different schools, and there are islands with trees in them. You mentioned the other day at the workshop, you brought up BCTC. As I left your church earlier this week and drove by BCTC, that parking lot is full of trees.
That parking lot has got 2 in every island, and that's what we were talking
I don't know
about.
what you're looking at, but the ones I saw went the full length of the building with trees.
Right, 2 in every island. That's what I'm
All the way
talking
up and
about.
down through there.
Right, in that section of it, okay? But nothing's.
But you
in-
said there weren't
No, I'm
any.
talking about the hedges all the way around it. That's what I was talking about, not the trees in it, the hedges around it, okay? The same thing with the schools out here. There's no hedges around their parking lots. I think it's a good reason for that. Plain open site, nobody can hide behind them, and now we don't gotta worry about somebody doing that. If you're in your home, they tell you, cut the hedges away from your home so that people can't hide there and get you. Guys, I'm dealing with this, and you know we're dealing with it. You see it on the news every day. Kids are getting killed and stuff's happening. We want an open line of sight so we can see everything. Everything that's coming and going. We got cameras all over that property for that purpose.
What I'd like to do is actually bring the engineer up. I've got a question for Fred. Fred, can we plant a few trees, maybe a little further away from the building, to satisfy our coverage, the UAV coverage and the IL coverage and all that? So I'm assuming you can make that happen.
Yes, pastor has agreed to planting trees elsewhere on the site to cover the creeks.
So maybe not as close to the building, but a little further away for his safety and the parishioner's safety of the church. But then the question I have for you also as an engineer is, how am I gonna get some bushes between the gravel parking lot and Tunnel Road?
That's a tough deal.
Because again, I hate to say it, Mr. Gollins, come on up here, I'll ask you, you can answer it. The thing is without permission, and like we said, yeah, this is United States, not Russia, but there is a rules that need to be followed. That's why we have planning and zoning that was, I think, created right after Charlie started, right, Charlie?
Excuse me?
If you stop those side conversations, pay attention, we'd be okay, Charlie.
Oh, no, I'm resolving all kinds of issues.
So, I mean.
The Ukraine war is gonna be over here in a minute.
When when did planning and zoning start? I mean, it started back in
In the county,
In the county.
it started in 1970, in the city in 58.
So that's why we did that, is to make sure that there's a standard met by both, churches, residents, businesses, et cetera. So
So
when you
I'm not-
come to us and say, hey, I did this and you didn't know better,
No, I didn't. If
I
I
know.
knew that we had to do that, we would have done that.
I know,
but we
I
didn't.
know.
That's why we've done
So
everything
you're
else.
kind of a little at the mercy of us because you did something that without permission, so we've got to try to rectify it and make sure that your neighbors, the houses there are protected.
So Mark, let me answer the thing.
Sure.
We can come into the gravel parking lot and we can drill the holes because it's enough off the easement if we come right on the edge of the gravel. And we can do that, but I really don't want those bushes there. Can I not put a couple trees there instead of a bush? Because, like I said, I don't want places where people can get and hide behind.
But I understand it's far enough from your front door that,
Well, dude, an AR-15 shoots a long way, okay?
yeah.
I got issues.
But it sounds like you got enough guns in the building, you might be okay.
Well, if we're not during daycare, because I'm the only one that's there.
I hear you.
I think we get back to the reason for the barrier, it's really to create a visual barrier, which a hedge does, which a couple trees is not gonna do. right?
Visual dust barrier, I mean, I
Yeah.
see a couple different reasons. You've got all those residents there to the, I guess it's to the east of you.
So you don't want a barrier, you don't need that parking lot that big, because you don't use it for the bus thing, so why would you be opposed to removing what you don't need?
Well, we can let it grow back up with grass. I mean, if that's, grass is
Because you
gonna
don't,
do it.
if you're only using it for that bus and that van, you don't need anywhere near that size, right?
No, I guess we don't, but we need enough access to get around to the back of the building,
That's right, I follow.
okay? So
Yeah.
we still need to come through here and through here. And, we can cut it off to here and bring it through, if that's what we
Still
need to
need
do.
a,
We could let that upper section grow and put some shrubs
no
in
matter what
there.
size.
We
Regardless
could
of
do
the
that.
setback from the road,
Yeah.
it's still need a hedge.
I don't know if anybody else has been out there, but the high point of this property is right there on that sign where it says Gun Road. And it fades down toward the pond. So the far corner of the parking lot is the low spot on the parking lot. And that gravel lot is slanting down toward their existing building. Now, the staff has recommended we have some kind of barrier to keep that gravel from moving. If they want the gravel to flow into their building, let them do it. I've got no problem with not having a barrier there.
Can I say something real quick?
Just a second here. And he's exactly right. It is worn down, it's padded down. It's not gonna migrate the way it is now. Now, there's no reason that 5 years from now, you decide to re-gravel it, and that loose gravel, again, it's your problem if it flows down to your building. So be it. But we do need some trees. You talked about the other day, that low point in the parking lot is wet all the time, and trees wouldn't grow there. Well, you can get a weeping willow or a sycamore that like wet feet, and they'll go just fine right there. Put a sycamore right there.
Right
and-
there?
Yeah, and next time you talk about Zacchaeus, you can reference that
We can
sycamore,
do that. We can do that.
because that's what you can see.
And I do need to apologize, I have to leave.
If you'll show that here, the shop with the,
I'll just get that too. Yeah.
This
no, one more, they're right there. I can see where the top right-hand corner where you say trucks come in and run over those trees. I can see where that would happen, because I know how they like to swing wide through there. So instead of having those trees right there, just pull those on around, parallel with the parking lot, between parking lot and Mill Road, and replace those true trees in another spot. That's all we're asking you to do.
I got no problem with that.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, no problem.
As long as, we're saying you need some extra trees, put those extra trees in, we'll work with you on place them at different places there, so that they're not in your way. I understand, that island right there in the front door. I've done the same thing, I'd have got permission for to do it and go in there and say, look, this didn't work. I don't know what Thoroughbred Engineering was thinking when they designed it this way, but, it doesn't work. And so, we'll work work with you. We need some trees. We feel like the hedge needs to be around that gravel parking lot between it and the road to protect the visual side of people coming down the road so they don't have to look at a gravel parking lot and your neighbors across the road from you there, so that it appears more pleasant for them also.
How long's the gravel parking lot been there?
At 2 years, right at 2 years. This gravel parking lot real quick.
Gravel lot, let's
Go
not
back
call
to
it a
that,
parking
no,
lot.
that's what they're calling it, but yeah, so we'll go back to the storage lot. Can I flip back to that?
This
Back
one,
again to the,
I'm getting there. There's a lot of
there you
pictures.
go. See this right here? This right here is a berm. So that was put in there when we built it, and that lets nothing go no further than right there. It is a barrier, and all the water there has to come down the thing and go around the back. If you come right here and look on this piece of property, you'll see no rock right there at all, and that's where all the water runs, okay? So that's what I'm saying, it's not a big deal. I can do the hedges up here, we can put them on the edge of the gravel and run right up through there, but we can do that. I don't want them there, but if you say me I gotta put them, I'll put them there. The trees, I'll be happy to put a big, whatever, what do you call it? What kind of tree? Sycamore. We'll put a sycamore tree down. I don't care about that kind of stuff. I just don't wanna have to put the stuff back in my parking lot because we took it for a reason. The tree trash in my door, people falling over things, that's all I care about. I don't care about planting more trees on the property.
And he's the one on the far corner of the building, that there's a flagpole there, which looks nice. It doesn't help mitigate the shade in the area, so we need that tree. You don't have to put it back in that place, it's someplace else, but what we're looking at is the number of trees for the square footage of the parking lot.
Yes, we can do that.
All right, I don't think. So the only thing that you're in disagreement with is the hedges along the parking lot.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I don't like nothing but people can hide, cause I got babies in there and I've got church people in there.
I understand that.
Is the lady from Florida still here?
She comes in about every 3 or 4 weeks. Her son goes to church with us, lives right down the road. Just built a big fancy new home down there. So right down going.
Maybe she would help pay for the modifications.
I
The
doubt
law
it.
requires
I
the
doubt it
heads
very-
here.
I doubt it very seriously. But anyway, yeah, okay.
All right, Mark has left and left me in charge.
Oh, now we're.
So is there any other discussion, questions you may have?
Do we have any of the other residents of the area to speak?
Okay, please come up. Come up and state your name.
My name is Tom Probst, and I live at 284 Gunn, which is just 2 houses down from the church. I don't have as many questions as I think observations that you as a council need to think about, or commission need to think about. First of all, US 62, we're talking about traffic. US 62 turn on Gunn. I can't tell you how many wrecks have been there, but there's been a number. I know there's some person recuperating right now of a wreck that happened 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, maybe at most. So you're talking about, I'd originally heard 40 students. You're talking about increase of traffic. Those 40 students going to be dropped off and picked up. You're talking about 80 at a minimum, probably a day. Plus, you got staff. So let's just round off 90 to 100 cars per day that's going to be turning in there. Now you're talking about 80 students. So now double that, 160 plus staff. So you're talking about, well, let's just say 150 cars per day. How many is that a week? How many of you want to increase the traffic in front of your house, 150 cars a day? Now, I don't know where any of you live. I know where James lives, but I don't know where, I used to know where Charlie lives. I don't know if you still live there or not.
I absolutely do.
Really?
Absolutely do.
But it's hard to imagine what you're going to put the neighborhood through with the approval of this subdivision or this planning commission thing, whatever. just this morning, I mean, you're talking about coming out on Gunnell Road. How many of you travel Gunnell Road? I mean, Charlie, you have, because you said you was just over there. But how many of you know Gunnell Road? It's about 1.5 car length width road. It's not a 200 car per day road. It is absolutely not. You multiply that out. I mean, I was going with just 40 kids a day. You're talking about 500 cars a week on a little bitty country road. It's just not feasible. Just this morning, and this is not the first time. I mean, they run my daughter over, because she lives right next door to the church, but they run her over in the neighbor's yard when she was coming home one day. This morning, she was going to school, and the person coming out of the parking lot had to squeal their tires to stop. They just didn't look. Now, you're talking about increasing that traffic to the point, for what? And I understand that a lot of this stuff is probably legal as far as the legality is concerned. But if it was only the legal part you have to deal with, then the staff could deal with all that. They don't need you. So I think you've got to take back and say, okay, as a commissioner, you've got to consider the neighborhood. We've talked to most of the people in the neighborhood. None of them are for it. And the church is one thing, but you start talking about a school and increasing traffic for all the neighbors and everything. I mean, Bill, you still coming up? So Bill's right across the road. He can allude to some of this probably more than I can. But I'm just down the road a little bit. And there was something about, on the gravel parking lot, I just wanted to make my 2 cents worth on it. It's in the gravel parking lot for, it comes up in industrial light sites and so forth. This is not an industrial site. This is a church. This is a residential neighborhood that you're saying, okay, it's grandfathered in or whatever you want to say. I don't care. But this is not an industrial site that they allow them for. This is a residential neighborhood. So how can you allow that to be in a residential neighborhood when you're comparing it to an industrial site? It's just not comparable. Noise. Right now, I don't know how many kids they've got up there, but it's certainly not 40. They might have 10 or 15, 20 at the most. The noise is something that's going on every day. Now, I assume in the wintertime, they may not go out and play as much, but I mean, you're talking about screaming kids. And that's what kids do. I don't begrudge them that at all. But when you're right next door and you can't enjoy your property because of the screaming kids all the time, that is, why do you even allow that in a residential neighborhood? What if you had a school come right next to you and you had 80 screaming kids come over next door every day, 5 days a week? How would you like it? And obviously, according to the rules and requirements, you may have to just suck it up and eat it. But that's not necessarily what this commission's about. You're trying to fit something into the neighborhood that's existing. Trash is another issue. I know my daughter who lives next door, and there is a tree line between the church and my daughter's property. So I think that tree line catches a bunch of trash. And I don't care, I'm sure most of you have went to different events wherever. And if you get people together, there's going to be trash out there. It's almost impossible not to have it in some form or fashion. But then why increase that to the point that it's going to be more trash on our existing property? It doesn't make any sense again. So my appeal to you is not because of the requirements of the planning and zoning and saying, oh yeah, it meets all the requirements. All the tree canopy stuff. I mean, I got trees all around my property, all over the thing. And they're great. So the more trees you plant, as far as I'm concerned, the better. But that's a minor issue compared to the safety and sound. I mean, you're talking about, what was that saying, 500-800 cars a week? You're talking about the safety of these kids coming off 62. I mean, at the very least, you might need a turn lane in 62. And you possibly even do it on Gunnell. Put a turn lane in on Gunnell. That's not going to help people going towards 62 because people pull out in front of it, which is what happened to my daughter this morning. So I don't know how you get around some of those issues without some extra requirements. It's going to bring up the trash issue thing. If they could have a privacy fence, that could be a condition of approval. Put up a privacy fence of some sort. It's going to catch all the trash to that side. So I'm not sure I got anything else necessarily, but I think you need to consider the neighborhood as much as anything else. I do have one question. I think in the original plan, I think there was a 5-foot height variance requested on one of the buildings, and I don't know that that's, how far that's made it, whether that's still in existence or not.
That was notated.
I think there was a limitation on height, and they asked for a 5-foot variance because they set the building back another 5 feet, but that doesn't make any sense either. I mean, I know you do on the building setback lines, sometimes you say, well, yeah, you can do this if, you know, half the building's over the building line and half of it's back, but if you got equal distance, then you're allowing it, but just simply because they moved the building back a little bit doesn't give you a reason for variance for the height.
On page 2 is proposed building height. The building height proposed is not be greater than permissible.
Yeah, I didn't see anything in the final approval. Is that still in the final approval?
It's not listed explicitly as a condition or a waiver. It's just kind of understood that, like, if you have that height, if you just are 5 feet inwards, you don't really need it.
But who understands that? I didn't.
Well,
It's just not understood.
yeah, from our
So you either
side.
make it or not make it.
We can add it as a waiver to explicitly put it down.
Well, you asked for, I mean, they're asking for the waiver. I'm saying
think-
there's no reason for the waiver.
I
Put the
think-
thing
I think
5 foot in
there's-
the ground.
I think there's just a little confusion in the terminology. It's a mechanism that's already built into the zoning ordinance,
Mhm.
that they can go taller than sort of the base amount as long as they set it back. So it wouldn't require
So
a waiver.
that's in
wouldn't-
the require, I mean, it's set in the zoning requirements right now?
Yes. Yeah, so there's a table that says how tall the buildings can be in each district, with
Based on
sort of
how
an
far back it
asterisk in
is?
the same table saying that, yeah, if they set it back an extra amount, they can increase the height by that same amount.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask just as a reference point, how many congregants do you normally have on Sunday?
Usually about 100.
And that's probably, some families do 50 or 60 cars. I mean, I'm assuming more than one person.
We usually have less than 50.
That's church.
Yeah, that's what I
Because
was
that's
just as a
a
comparison.
whole different
I
situation.
understand, I wanted it as a comparison point.
I'm Bill Parker, 177 Middle Road. I live directly across the street from the church. I don't have a pad, so bear with me. I do have some notes. Got a couple of comments and maybe a couple of requests. On the building height, I don't really care how high it is, as long as it doesn't get any higher than the roof of the existing building from my living room across the street. I see a good bit of metal, and, you know, it is what it is. So hopefully, with what they do, you know, I won't be seeing more metal, I'll still be able to see the trees back in the back.
It'll be good from your view. anyway.
Right, and then my question, I have a question or concern, I guess, about the water runoff. You're having a lot of roof there, and if the downstream doesn't take it, then it's gonna back up to the whites and the propes, and it's gonna probably flood them, I think. I don't know, I've not done calculations, I'm not qualified to do calculations, I'm assuming that somebody has or will. And along those lines, I've seen the pond referred to, I guess I've heard it referred to as a pond and a settlement retention basin. I'm pretty sure it's a pond. My thought process in a settlement basin is that it's empty until you get flash floods or a lot of water, then it builds up to absorb that, and then as the water goes down, then this will go down. So there's really not a detention basin there now, and with adding this, and again, I'm just asking the question, I live across the road, if it gets high enough to bother me, we're in big trouble. And I've got a couple more things after this, but I've got them in the order I've got written in my hand. Based on what I think there's some discussions about, some drawings have to be changed and different things. I'd like to ask that you take no action tonight. I'd like to have a little time to come up and look at the drawings and the notes and, you know what I'm talking about when, you know, I ask questions and all. And I'm not against this. I'm just concerned that it needs to be done right, because if it floods the whites and the probes, it's gonna flood the church's buildings as well, which will create an issue. The waiver on the parking lots, is that, and I know you'll answer it in a little bit, is that for the existing or the new or both? And the parking and storage, I guess it is. And that's one that I've got probably more concerned about than anything. And I apologize for not coming over and talking to y'all. I've been thinking about doing it for over a year and I've not done it. I'm pretty flexible. So, but the storage there is great for the utility contractors and all. That's awesome. I mean, they did use it. They were in there in the mornings, they'd get out and they'd come back to park there at night, and I don't know what they'd done without it. It was good. You know, I have no problem with that. But I don't really think there should be a storage or long-term parking between the church and Gunner Road. And the school bus that you see there has not moved for almost 2 years. It's been there for quite some time, and that's what I was going to call you about. I just haven't done it, and, you know, obviously not really that upset about it, but I just don't think that that's what the community needs, is a storage and a long-term parking lot between the church and the Gunner Road. And I actually don't think it represents the church as well as it could, you know, if it wasn't there as well. On the shrubs, I have to say I agree with them on those. I think that, you know, I know y'all gotta have stuff to meet your requirements, and but there's been a lot of, in the past years, there's been a lot of vandalism and break-ins, and, you know, more, in my personal opinion, you know, we need visibility. We don't need something that somebody can squat down and get behind. So, but that's, I believe all of my comments. I run out of paper. Thank y'all for your time. I appreciate your consideration.
Do we have anyone else like to comment or questions?
One comment I might make, doesn't have to help things, I'm sure, but we're kind of talking about like this building, this church building out there is going to have problems where we're not talking about other schools buildings and so on. In other words, they're kind of acting like it's going to happen. And I just wonder how come I know you got to protect yourself and you think about things, but I don't know that somebody's inside with weapons is going to be the answer either. That's just a thought, because we're talking about some things more so than maybe some of the other things that we need to be on instead of that. But we're just talking about parking lots and everything else, but haven't said much about the school, how many students we're going to have, and what ages they're going to be, and how the septic, that was mentioned something about the septic. You know, you've got 100 people there every day. That's a devil influence on your water system. The outflush.
But the health department will address that.
Yeah.
It's probably going to take 2 or 3 septic tanks bigger than what they got, I'm sure. But of course, I know they're thinking about all those kind of things. But this, we're all kind of.
Thank you all so much. I'm Fred Eastridge, by the way, with Thoroughbred Engineering. Nice to see you all. A lot of these comments should have been or had been addressed with the Board of Adjustment. This plan had to go to the Board of Adjustment to get approval to have a school and a daycare on the property. The Board of Adjustment approved that, and that's what the church is going for. they've gone through the process, they've gone to the Board of Adjustment, which was a public meeting, a public hearing where people could come and make their comments. And they decided that this could go in. The development plan that we're talking about is not the functionality of the school, that it can be there or not. It's the planning process of drives and roads and things like that. So I just wanted to make sure that that was out in the public record. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
I think that's a relevant point, and I would just add, I understand, Mr. Probst, your perspective that, you know, for us to add some interpretation around it, but ultimately, we're bound by what the planning and zoning regulations are and to follow those. We can't not approve things if they meet the planning and zoning guidelines. That's a challenge, even if it might be something that's not ideal for us.
You're talking about planning and zoning. The planning is one thing. They can plan all they want to with roads and everything else. But the zoning, I think you've got to interpret some of that. And some of, you know, you're talking about an agricultural area or a residential area. Now you're putting a 80-person school in there. I mean, it's totally different. I mean, it changes your whole neighborhood. So if you want to keep your neighborhood the same, I'm telling you, how many of you want to have an 80-person school right next door to you?
But see,
I don't know whether you live in, Charlie, I don't know, you still live in town?
yeah, I still.
Okay, you live in town. You live in town for a reason. You know you're gonna put up with crap. We live out in the county because you don't have that much stuff. All of a sudden, you're trying to bring your way of living in the city out to the county. And we're not out there for that reason.
I think the horse is already at the gate as it comes to the approval of the daycare and school being there.
Okay,
Board of Adjustment.
you're saying if that was approved, why weren't we notified? I mean, it's not like we're gonna go to the Board of Adjustments every week and find out what the hell they got going on. We got a notice of this meeting because it was required. So but there was no notice as far as the school being approved or not approved, so nobody knew about it. So it was kind of done at the dark of night. This, because of your requirements, was not allowed to be that way. We had everybody within so many miles, or so quarter mile, or 200 feet, or whatever it was, had to be notified. So here we are. We were notified, so we show up.
What was the radius that had to be notified on the conditional use permit?
For the county board of adjustment, it just goes by state statute, so it's just the adjoining property owners are notified.
Well, that still would have been your daughter.
The daughter should have been.
Okay. And then across the road.
Yeah, and then for the
Yeah, but
planning
you're talking
commission,
about-
we notify 1,000 feet when it's
You
outside.
notify one or two people, and you're talking about affecting the whole neighborhood.
Well, I understand that, but we are required to follow the statute.
So it would affect bills, I mean, he would be within that.
Where's the Henry Farm? Is that behind?
Yes.
It's
Well, I
between
know
the
the big
church,
one's down the road, but
between the
I
church
know
and 62.
Mrs. Henry was there at the meeting.
Yeah, well,
She not adjacent?
Luckily, we have the attorney for
She
this.
knows,
We got it.
Yeah.
Sarah owns the 5 acres of trucks on 62 and Gunn.
Yeah.
Or went in with the 5 acres.
Right.
on the corner.
On the corner.
That would have been it then.
Yeah. As you're looking at this picture from the left back towards Cynthia Road.
Yeah, Cynthia Road, the front, looking out over and Gunn on the other, and then the creek on the top on the other.
Right. No, we were talking about that pond or detention basin or whatever. Isn't there a little creek that runs behind that also?
Yes.
Yeah, it floods.
Where the shrubs are.
See on the
Well, there's-
aerial, just this up together, right, this
Yeah.
one, it floods. That's why we're here.
When the Rains owned that, they built 2 farms, one right there and one adjacent to it, for irrigation purposes. The creek would fill them up so they could irrigate out of it. There's nothing about retention or anything else. They wanted to retain the water for the irrigation purposes only. But they had those put in some years ago.
But you've got a lot of grass between that parking lot and that pond. I don't know. I've not been out there in heavy.
Well, but they're talking about building all those buildings back along the fence line back there, and it's gonna come fairly close to the water. I don't know how, I mean, it's still probably 100 feet or more.
Well, the septic is gonna be between the pond, I believe, and the whites, is that right? The septic.
They'll come up here and say things.
So it's gonna, if they do that, then it's gonna end up flowing right in the creek.
Okay. First off, I'll start with like saying, I just want to do my part to make sure that it's done right and it's, everything's thought out, and there's no flooding issues, nobody gets flood later, and all that, and then, you know, the concern I had personally about the roof and the bus and all that, but, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not saying wrong, but first off, if I got a notice about anything other than this meeting and the original construction of the church years ago, I don't recall it. I'm not gonna say I didn't get it, I'm just gonna say I don't recall it, and I think I would have. But I think between the pond and to the right, if you're looking at that picture right there, there's been a lot of dirt hauled in. That's for the septic, isn't it? That's what I thought. They hauled in a lot of dirt, and it's got a septic or whatever, you know, they've got the requirements now there.
Just like Rita Jones was talking about earlier.
Yeah. And I really didn't realize the requirement until she's talked about it, how long it had to set. But, they brought it in, this leveled it up. But that's all I wanted to say, I guess, unless y'all have any questions.
A lot of that green area to the right of the pond and everything, isn't that mushy like ground in nice weather?
I couldn't speak for that. I just know that they, you know, and I'm assuming they talked to the people, I guess, the health department as far as meeting their requirements for the septic. I'm not sure.
I know that, well, that little holler as it crosses 62, it goes on down. Next holler back, it's there are days that you don't get on there.
I can't guess that. I'm not familiar with it. But, thank y'all.
I'll just point out for the stormwater, we've got a condition, there is a detention shower, well, we're just where, you just.
Sorry, if that's
Yeah.
the old one. But
This thing right here, they're proposing to slow down water. I haven't seen all the final numbers, but they will have to meet the county, Georgetown County requirements before we approve the final, so.
And so what is,
Look at that.
physically, what does that look like?
Below all this area and above the leach field, there will be what they're showing here will be a large berm all the way around this with small pipes leaching out to slow the water down. So Fred should be able to talk more about it if you need more.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments?
We need a new printer.
yeah, for your sons, proof that plugged in.
So, it's gonna stay solid.
Do I have a motion of any sort before this commission tonight?
Let me ask, are there any changes we need to make to the conditions based off of the discussion of the trees as well as where the barrier would be, the gravel line?
Kind of sounds like that, maybe we ought to think about a couple of things, not only trees, but maybe the water, the runoff, before we really act. I think it needs to be studied maybe a little more.
Well, being just address the runoff there, that's gonna be, taken care of, looks like.
If it doesn't present a problem somewhere else.
Mr. Gomes has said that he'll put in trees. His big sticking point was the bushes around the gravel lot. I'm not calling it a parking lot, the gravel lot.
And number 7 says that he would replace the improperly removed trees, but that would be changed to say, because they wouldn't necessarily go back unless they.
They don't have to go back in the same spot.
So one more thing I'd like to point out, this right here is that water retention berm they're talking about, it's already in there. So it's already in there. Fred would be showing it more on, I guess, on his plans.
I like to, there's two things in this world that are not understood very correctly or misunderstood, and that's traffic and drainage. The drainage on this is, we're talking about an 8,000 square foot building?
6,000.
6,000 square foot building.
10,000 square feet
Yeah,
of building.
The drainage area for this watershed is over several hundred acres. So the water that will be discharged from the roof of this thing, that is replacing the grass, is like taking a eyedropper and dropping a drop of water into a swimming pool. And with your good, great people here, they're gonna make sure that the discharge from this site is not going to be greater than what it was in the grass. So, the concern of flooding by a 6,000 square foot building, it's not, in a watershed like this, it's not a really concern. And I'm sure Dan can contest to this, but we will be forced to control the discharge from the site to make sure that it's not greater than the existing discharge. Okay?
Now, there's no requirement for this back line next to Mr. Probst's daughter, the back of the school. There's no requirement there for, I guess the tree line that they're supposed to be adequate, there's no, like a fencing with the woven wire in that or something that would keep from sight or trash or.
There's currently no buffer between two agricultural properties.
Because it's states.
Because they're agriculturally zoned. You may consider one if you feel so inclined, but our standards do not require one.
So church and school is still considered agricultural.
It's a conditional use in the agricultural areas. Conditional, I get used to it. I'm used to it, I see it all the time, but I can understand.
And did we decide like number 9 would be completely stricken? Your last gravel migration plan?
Please.
I have no problem with stretch. Because like I said,
Where it goes.
Yeah.
like Reverend John said, there's a berm there already, but even if that wasn't, and they want that gravel to
Yeah.
migrate down to their property, if it's going to another property, I'd say, yeah, put it in. If it's on their own property, let them deal with it.
And then in 7, maybe a caveat that the trees should be replaced, but they do not require that they are put in the same spot as they were previously. They just need to be in accordance with the regulations.
That's correct, and added numbers to get them up to regulation.
Charlie?
Yes.
I think you all are creating a misdirection. You're talking about the tree buffer and all this stuff, how many trees and bushes should be there. You don't even think about the traffic. You're trying to get off on another tangent, and you need to be thinking about the traffic. Because you're talking about 800 cars a week in front of your house. And I understand, yeah, it might meet the requirements, but you gotta consider the people that are already there. And you're talking about all this buffer stuff, and it doesn't mean a damn thing. You gotta talk about what is real, what's the safety of the kids, what's the safety of the neighborhood. I mean, it's all the people there. You're endangering all them. So if you want to approve something that's going to increase your neighborhood by 800 cars a day and somebody has a wreck, you're going to say, well, it's not my fault. Bullshit, it's your fault. Because you approved it.
And I have to.
So you need to think about that.
Where that's at going into Gum without, if you're gonna add that much traffic going in and out of Gum.
It's a nightmare.
That's
Not discussed at the-
See, that's the thing.
That's exactly right.
You know, this is just the development.
How it's
plan.
done.
Yeah.
This is how it's done.
But if you start here, why let it go forward? It should not go forward.
Was the traffic discussed at the Board of
Yes,
Adjustment hearing?
yes it was.
Yeah.
They should have it on there, they done a full review of it, looked it over.
Traffic study was.
Yes.
Not a full
And
traffic
there's
study,
another
just a
thing.
general analysis.
When they were gonna build the subdivision down the road, they widened Gunner Road. So Gunner Road has been widened for more things they put.
You know what widening is? They put a 6-inch strip down the side. I mow it every week. They put a little 6-inch strip down the side, and it's at a 45-degree angle right now. They didn't widen the road. They put blacktop on it, sure. Just a little 6 inches of less that I gotta mow, but that's easy. There's no way you can drive on it. So if you get down on that part, you're down in the ditch.
Anybody have any summary points from the traffic analysis?
I don't have it with him.
Because I was just concerned about going on 62 than I would down your
So you
area.
can-
Most of
yeah.
the traffic's gonna be coming in that
Off
area.
of 62.
And that's what they,
And I think that's what the Board of Adjustment considered. This is so close to the corner of the road that the problems, if any, are gonna be that intersection perhaps, it's not gonna
The
be. on
intersections would be a nightmare, with that many more, I mean, you're talking about the Toyota traffic on top of everything else. James lives on 62, he can tell you about the damn traffic on 62 and how fast they drive.
I'll compare your place with my Southampton any day you want to.
I tried to do that part.
No, I understand what you're saying, and where you're coming from, but as a point of reference, we had to look at things on Connector Road, and it's a nightmare. But the state put that in that size, and, you know, businesses kept coming and coming on Connector where it's, pretty full all the way across it there.
You're comparing Connector Road, which is
No, I'm not comparing.
commercial
What
to
I'm
residential.
saying is, we are put in this situation because, one, it's not, it is a state road, or a county road that we have no control over, but they say this, and this, is acceptable to put there. And like, it was said earlier, that Mary said, you know, it falls within those parameters.
See, I think the commission needs to think more than just, oh yeah, it fits within the parameters, so you're gonna become a rubber stamp for everything that comes in. You need to be more than that. You gotta think about the people that's already there. They need to conform to what we're doing, or the neighborhood is, and not just, so yeah, they meet the requirements. You know, the daycare permissional use is okay for residential. How many daycares do you know, or schools, whatever, that's got 40, 50 kids in it, in their house? They don't do that. So I can see the conditional permit. I mean, my oldest daughter stayed in the house. They had like 3 or 4 kids. And I can understand that, because that's conditional use permit in their residential structure. But now you're talking about a whole different category when you start about talking to school and everything else, allowing it within a agricultural or a residential neighborhood. It's just, you know, you gotta think about your conscience. It's just not right.
Thank you.
Gunner Road, you know, I think we all know that is a county road, it's a state road. The widening of the road has been referenced. It's for the county road department has went by and they've added 6 inches to a foot on each side. They do that throughout the county. They didn't do that for that particular subdivision. If you look throughout the county, you'll look and you'll see that. They do that. It's good that they do it. It helps some. It's not a cure-all. As far as traffic, the state will probably have to put a light, in my opinion, at the end of Gunnell, because if you're trying to get out of Gunnell, when Toyota shifts are coming or going, you know, I've waited as long as 10 minutes to try to get through. I mean, that's just the way it is, and you know, probably just gonna need a light. But the main reason I'm up here for, unless there's some reason that this thing has to go through tonight, I'll repeat my request that no action be taken. I'd like to personally come up and look at the drawings and go through them. I know I've seen stuff up here tonight and that, and you know, but you can't really see the whole picture without spending a little time on it and doing a little research. And that's all that I'm asking for. So, thank you for your time.
I want to bring a point that he just brought up. Our daycare operates in the hours from 7 o'clock till 6 o'clock. It will not be operating during Toyota traffic time. They got to be working at 6:30. So that traffic's all going to be through before they even try to come to our daycare.
Like in the, between first and second shift in terms of people picking up at that time.
They won't nobody, they come pick them up at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, so the Toyota traffic's already gone, and then the Toyota parking lot too, because our daycare ends at 6. So that's why we set our hours the way we did. So that's, all that stuff has been considered
And the school hours would be
Same
7:30
thing,
to.
same thing.
All right, we're circling back to any other comments or questions?
Elise, the condition, was there more than one conditional use issued, or it was, how far back does the conditional use permit go, I guess, for this property, for the church, et cetera, in the zoning in? I'm just curious about the timeline of.
I'm unaware of when the church operation began. I'd have to do further stuff. I think they just kind of started and operated with the permit at the time. But the daycare, the first step was in 2006, yeah.
2000.
So that was when the church operation was there.
That's when the church was.
And it was when it was
That's,
built.
yeah, I remember that, sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, and then the first daycare portion was in 2021 in October-ish, and the expanded one was in like April.
I'm just making sure that I understand that there have been two conditional use permits for the daycare / school. One of the original size and then the expanded.
One for the daycare at the original size, and then the other one, per the application request, it's adding a new building for daycare plus school adjacent to church building. So that included the school for the
And
basement.
so Board of Adjustments heard expansions for this property essentially twice in a year.
Yeah, well, yes and no,
Well,
like
and
one,
one
from
conditional
church
use
to
permit.
church in this, and then from church in this to church in this in second building.
Right.
Yes, so technically two,
Two
but
expansions.
one to establish and one to grow.
Right,
Yes.
but semantics aside.
Yes.
Right, everybody following?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just wanting to know.
And so basically, if they decide that they don't wanna build anything, they can still have this daycare and school if they have enough room on the existing site now, correct?
Yeah.
And that's what I was trying to say to you, sir. You know, all that's done been approved. This is just the building and the, you know, the tree coverage and all that stuff. That's what we as commissioners are voting on tonight. You know, trust me, I feel for you. I understand what you're saying. I agree with you 100%. And I think several people here do also. But that's done out of our hands. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. I mean, it doesn't matter if we say, no, it's not gonna go through. He can still have a school and he can still do whatever he wants to do with the church, because it's done been voted on. Correct, Elise?
Yeah.
We wanted to have a school within the church building.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, they could.
that's already been a done deal. And that's, we're all gonna get confused that, you know, we got certain regs that we have to go by. And then, you know, that's presented to us, that's not really favorable to a lot of people, but it's really out of our control. We have to go by what our regs say.
The Board of Adjustment has said what can be done there.
Yes.
Our job at this point, because that's already been approved,
Is
it's
the
not a
building.
zoning change, it's how it's done.
Yeah, the
What are the
building.
requirements around it to make it, align with all of our planning and zoning regulations? And hopefully those also buffer as much as possible with the neighbors. And I understand your point, Bill, about delaying. I will say our experience in delaying is that unless there's some big unknown out there, very rarely does anything change. We just come back the next month and have the same issue, unless there's something that is out there, and I'm happy to hear that is an unknown that
Well,
goes
what I'm
on.
asking for is time to look at the drawing and see if I have a question, or if there is something that maybe y'all need to address, and I wouldn't wait till the next meeting. I would, if I see something, I would talk to staff, and all chances are, you know.
But Bill, you were notified because you didn't go down to look at the plans. You know, it doesn't create a problem for us.
Are you sure that I got notified about the Board of Adjustments meeting?
You're on the notification list.
I got the last one.
Having gotten the
I got the last one for this meeting,
Okay.
and like I said, I don't recall the
So
Board
you
of
should,
Adjustments.
Yeah.
you had time to act on that letter,
On which one?
the one you just got.
Well,
Confirm that you were on the
yeah, I got
For the
some
Board of
phone calls and
Adjustments,
stuff,
both of
yeah.
them, and then this one. So he's saying that he just got
But
So
the
you're talking about
objective
Board of
should
Adjustments
be
being the
to
first
get
one,
it
then
right,
21,
and
22.
so I'm not asking for anything other than a little time to be able to see what's been approved, to see if I have any questions. That's all I'm asking. You know, I think, you know, again, I don't want to tell you how to do your job, but I think the people of Scott County deserve, including the church, deserves to see that everything is done how it needs to be done. And it very well may be, but I'm just asking for a little time to look at the drawings and stuff and maybe have a little communication with staff if there's something that I have a question about. Thanks.
Sorry.
No problem.
Again, I'm Fred Eastridge. That is why notifications are sent out at least 14 days before the hearing, so people can see that, ask the questions of the staff, and get knowledgeable of what's going on. It's not, nothing is done in a cloak of darkness or behind closed doors. Your staff is very diligent on this. I had to send out the notifications myself. I gave this staff a list, a notification map, and I also personally certified that this sign was posted on the site, which gave notification, and I also sent out letters. So there was plenty of opportunity for all the general public to know that there was a case coming before you tonight, and plenty of time to find out what they need. The sign was posted, notification letters were sent, so please don't hold us up if we don't, because the church has got a building going to be showing up on this site because of the delay in materials. We really need to be moving if we can. Thank you so much.
Did the Board of Adjustment require a sign, or is it just a notification by mail?
It's just notification by mail sent by staff to adjoining property owners for the county level.
So you all have built the parking lot, cut the trees down, ordered the building, all this stuff's been set in motion. It's just in house.
No, sir, we haven't ordered a building yet.
I thought you said it was going to be on site in a few days.
Well, I said we need to, we
That's what
need
you
to
said.
order, I'm sorry, we need to order the building.
Okay.
because
It's
of
gonna
delay.
take longer than.
No, we haven't ordered anything, no.
I'm
The
like,
church is, what the church is doing is investing money in my time.
That makes more sense, all right.
I'm sorry about that if I confused you, I apologize
Just
for that.
circling.
One more thing, I'll sit down, okay? And there again, I understand construction, I don't understand, you know, materials going up, I understand all that. But if the fill on the septic has to set a year before anything can be done, it's not really a time issue. Because they can't, you know, use it, they can't get certificate of occupancy, is my understanding, until they meet the septic requirements. And if the person that was in here earlier was correct, that it has to set a year before they can use it, then they're not really a time issue.
Isn't that year requirement though, if the land does not perk at all? If this perks, they don't have that requirement, they go ahead and install.
Yes, this is dealing, so it is a fill and wait. It started in July the 5th is when we filled it, and now it's wait. But we get the right to put the tanks in and pump the tanks. So we can go right ahead with the school and the daycare, and all we gotta do is pump the tanks and put an alarm on it that the tanks are full. And we pay somebody to come and pump them, and we continue on until we put the leach field in. That piece of property has got $15,000 worth of dirt land there, and it's gonna have 1,180 feet of leaching chambers in it. That's massive.
All right, commission. Didn't know about the tanks.
I hear a motion in any form, fashion.
I'll make a motion to approve DEP 2022-40 with the note on condition of approval 7, that they shall replace removed trees, and replace them in accordance.
So not in the same location.
Though not in the same location,
So that might be-
but in accordance with regulations.
It goes, yeah, it goes,
Yeah.
I believe that in.
Yeah. And striking number 9, which is the requirement of a gravel mitigation plan.
I'll strike through this.
And I don't think reading it, there is, on number 2, two, under the waiver, it talks about
I'm sorry, up there, yeah.
the barrier. Would be on the perimeter, but obviously placed back on the easement, so I don't know if there's anything we need to say about that or not.
I don't, at least based off of how I understand it.
What'd you say?
I think, I mean, I understand it as there are
Okay.
no changes based off of what the general comments are.
Because it
But I
doesn't say
don't want to
where it has to be.
misconstrue.
It just has to be on the outside of the gravel.
Yeah, it's just saying perimeter but not interior landscaping for the gravel parking lot only.
So I guess that's the only change.
All right, I have a motion by Ms. Singer. I hear a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. And we will take a roll call vote. Mary Singer,
Yes.
Brett Shirley,
No.
David Vest,
Yes.
James Stone,
No.
Brad Green,
No.
Mr. Perkins, if we have a tie vote here, what do we do?
Did you vote?
Been a long time since that's happened.
I thought
You can
we-
reconsider what the next 30 days.
vote, Mr. Mifflin.
Okay, I will vote yes,
So that makes it 3-3.
which makes it 3-3.
And I believe, gosh, it's been a long time since I've even looked at it, but provision I used to be, you can come back within 30 days or something and reconsider, or attempt to break the tie. I think it's necessarily reconsider, but attempt to break the tie, because we've had several
We'll have
absences.
several absent tonight,
Yeah.
so we'll
So what I
reconsider
was-
this next month.
Yeah, what I would suggest is that declare that a tie vote, which is of course no action, and then continue the matter to next month, to see if we can break the tie.
Okay.
So Bill, you get your time.
That's right. Well, clever way of doing it, wasn't
That's
it?
right, that's right.
Bill, hold on a second. So the commission vote is tied for the record, and we have 3 members absent, and so we will continue until the September meeting,
Yeah, September 8th,
September 8th.
yes.
Thank you, and we will attempt to vote at that time. Okay?
And in the meantime, I would encourage discussions with the staff as much as possible to answer questions ahead of time, not that we can't go through the same process. but
Right,
just so we can-
well, that was my question gonna be, will there be a chance for us to speak at the next meeting, or is this gonna be a clarification of the vote?
No, it's an
It's
open
all,
meeting.
it's all over again.
Okay.
There will not be notices resent.
Right, I understand.
required.
You will not be renotified.
And I will come up and see you all, and if I've got any questions and all that, so, no problem with that. And I hope I haven't implied that I have anything, wrong with the staff, fantastic staff, I think y'all know that.
We know yours means a snake. You
And I
can't get
I
out
hope
of
that,
it.
I hope that
Does the
I would hope
commission
that, I
have
would
any
hope
other
that we
business?
are either in
Staff?
favor or against. sort of-
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Honestly though.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.